Hi friends, it's week 2 of our Kawaii veggie pattern series, and today we're turning to a classic garden favourite, tomatoes. These little guys have the cutest smiling faces, and we'll be building our pattern with the pattern maker canvas so everything fits together perfectly. If you're new here, my beginner floral series is a great place to start. It's the perfect intro to this style of Procreate pattern making. Remember, the brushes I'm going to be using today are free in the Pattern Maker's Toolkit. A little reminder for those just having fun, creating patterns like this is a lovely way to unwind. Think of it as a colouring book for your iPad. Stamp, trace, colour and enjoy. You could even use your tomato pattern for a cute new lock screen for your phone. If you don't have the Pattern Maker canvas, you can make a rough diamond on a new layer or use the 3 motif free layout in the toolkit to get started. Let's jump in and make our little tomatoes come to life. So let's start by bringing in our canvas. I'm going to go to import and I'm going to bring in the 12-inch canvas. And what I'm going to do before we start drawing is unlock the texture layers, and I'm going to change some of the settings on these to reduce the intensity of the textures, because for this type of kawaii pattern I think like a more flat kind of thing looks good. So we're going to change this to opacity to this one for 4. So 4% on the first one, and then 8%, and then these two we're going to change to 10. So you're always absolutely more than welcome to play around and change these to experiment with different settings, and then if you want to put them back how they're meant to be, you've always got the reference for the opacity there. So let's just lock this one, tap on the spare diamond, and we're going to bring in the 3 motif template. So we'll insert a file and bring in the 3 motifs. If you want to have a go without having to buy the canvas first, there's a free version of this 3 motif template on my website. It doesn't have the filler things, but it has like nice spacing for 3 motifs, so you could have a go with that if you wanted to. And we're going to start on our draw here first, and we are going to grab the tomatoes from the veggie set here. Where is it? That one there. And what I'm going to do, stamp a tomato in there, then I'm going to tap transform, turn off snapping, and just use this to move these around a little bit. Then I'm going to duplicate that one, flip it and place it in the corresponding one over here, so that we've got like an even mix of some going this way and some going that way. Then we'll put one over here, flip that one back that way a little bit, duplicate, flip it, and then put that one down here. Then one down here. Duplicate and flip that one horizontally and put it up there. Then we can pinch all of those together and merge them down with the sketch diamond and put those around the edges now. Turn snapping and magnetics on. This video is the second in this series, so if you want kind of like a more thorough introduction into how that works, then I would check out the first video in this series first. Or if you want a complete deep dive on making patterns this way, I've got this masterclass video which covers everything. Once you have all of those snapped into the corners like that, you can pinch those together, and I'm going to invert the colours so we can see what we're working with. And on this pattern, I think I'm going to do a mix of smaller tomatoes and flowers. So I think I'll do like a small tomato in here, maybe one in that gap there, one in there, and one in there. And then flip this one and that one around the other way. And then the other gaps I'm going to fill with the flower. That's the nice thing about having these templates as starting points, is like you get to choose how you want to make them your own and customize them. There we go. So now we'll offset this around the edges again, just to make sure everything's lining up properly. So I'm duplicating this bottom one and snapping it up into the corners, making sure that you've got those orange lines there each time. Pinch those top 4 together and invert the colours on those. And I'm going to turn the template off the bottom now. So you should have something kind of like that. And then what we need to do now is add the cute little faces on these flowers. So let's add a layer above. And I'm going to use this face for these. Add these cute little faces on these tomatoes, sorry, not the flowers. So let's stamp one of these on. Let's make that a lot bigger. Maybe not that big. Something like that. Tap transform, turn snapping and magnetics off, and then play around with the placement on these to kind of, you can either have them like bang in the middle like that, or what might be cute is if these two were kind of looking at each other. So if you put that one kind of over that way, and then on this one, which on our working layer is that one up there, you duplicate this one, flip that one, and if you put that one over that way, it's going to look like these two are looking at each other and smiling. So add one of those faces to each of these tomatoes. Okay, see how these two kind of look like they're looking at each other. And we'll have this one smiling at this little tomato, and this one is going to be smiling at that one. So duplicate this, make it a little bit smaller now for these guys. So that one is that one there. And looking at that, I can see that I just need to move this flower up a little bit, and this one here. So we can do that while we're at it. I think this could do with being a little bit smaller. And then we'll use that to fill these others. There we go, so we can pinch all of these smiley faces together now with all of the pink stuff. I'll delete the green layers. And then we just do one more offset, putting this around the edges now, and then we're ready to start tracing. So I'm going to turn the pattern folder on. I'll make my background this light blue colour. Turn this marker off, and then we can use that to add layers from the bottom up. And let's start by tracing over this tomato. So I'm going to grab the dark brown colour, the outline brush, and we'll just trace over this. I'm just going to draw around that, and then I'll hold until that snaps to a nice curve there. For drawing the face, you want to do that on a separate layer. So make sure you've got all of your faces on a different layer. We've got the tomato on one layer, the eyes and mouth on another one, and then if you want to do some cute little cheeks, you can do those on a third layer. There we go. So I'm going to go around and do that for all of the tomatoes, the big ones and the small ones, making sure that I've got just the tomato shape on one layer, eyes and mouth on the layer above it, and then the cheeks on a separate layer again. So go around and do that for all of them now. Now we can do the flowers. I'm going to draw the middle parts on this layer. Hold and tap to get a perfect circle. Then I'm going to add a layer underneath, and then I like to trace these flower petals like this so that I get the nice flow of the angles of the petals, which means you get a big scribbly mess in the middle, which is why I'm doing it on a separate layer, because then I can just erase that like that. And then when I've done all of the flowers on these two layers, I'll pinch those together. So I'm going to go around and repeat that for all of the flowers on this layer now. And then you can pinch these together once you've erased all the middles like that. And then we're ready to start filling these shapes. So let's make this layer here a reference layer. So tap on it and make it a reference. Then add a layer underneath, grab just any old colour, we'll use plain white, and we're going to fill everything in with white. But because we're making it a reference, it's going to use only the spaces on this layer. So if I fill that and then hide it, this one above, you can see it's only filling the spaces in between. If I fill that as well. Turn the sketch off. You can see everything is nicely separated, and we're going to use this as a reference for adding our colour fills over later. So let's turn this back on, and I'm going to go and fill everything in on this layer with white. So even each one of the flower petals, just make sure that you don't tap on that and then you get like a white halo there. You need to just make sure that you're filling in only the bits inside the shapes. And the reason I like working this way and having like as many of the base shapes as I can on one layer and then applying fills and shading over the top is that it cuts down on the amount of shading you need to do. If you have everything clipped over one base layer, you can apply everything to the same layer. So let's start by colouring in the tomatoes first. Let's add a layer above this, make it a clipping mask, and let's grab this red first of all. Let's turn the sketch layer on because I'm going to use the template layer as a reference for which ones to fill in different colours. So we'll do these two pink ones here. We'll use the darker red for those. Then we'll use the orange and do these two orange ones, and the yellowy one to do these two here. And then we could also use that to do this tomato, maybe that one there, that one orange, and then this little one up here is red. So that's all of our tomato shapes on that layer. Then we'll go back down to this white one, add a layer, and I'll use this green to do the stalks now. I'm going to do them all in this green, but then I'm going to alpha lock it like that. And I'm going to grab from the beginner floral brushes, is it this one? I'm going to drag this up here so I don't have to keep scrolling down for it. So from the beginner florals brush, this colour changer brush, and I'll make the primary colour this green, the secondary colour this green, and then we can just go and scribble over all of these stalks and have each one be a slightly different colour. So you can keep going with that until you've got a nice even spread of colours. Then we add a layer again and we'll do the flower middles now. I'm going to make them this orangey yellow colour. And then it's just the flower petals to do next, so add a layer and I'm going to make them this dark blue. Now what we're going to do is apply the kind of shading duotone effect to the outlines of these. So go up to your reference layer, the one that's got your tomato outline shapes on it, and duplicate that layer, alpha lock the one underneath, and double tap here to get a 50% grey and fill that layer with it. And then duplicate it one more time so you've got two of those. And we'll go up to this corner here, tap transform, and we're going to nudge this sort of 7, 8 or 9 pixels depending on what brush thickness you've used. So I'm going to tap it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and you'll see it creeps out past the outline there. What we're going to do is change the blend mode on this to colour burn, not colour dodge, and change the opacity to maybe like 40%, and then you see we get that nice outline there. The next one, underneath that, you can change to colour dodge 50% or 40%. Come down to this corner, tap transform, and then nudge this one the same amount of pixels that way. So keep looking up there as I do this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then you get that really cool two-tone effect there. To make it clip down over to just the shape so you can see it bleeds out onto the background there, if you clip these down over those shapes like that, tap on it and make it a clipping mask, it will just apply it to those base shapes there. That's the cool little shading trick we're going to use for this and the other patterns in this series. And what I need to do now is add a layer above, grab my bokeh fill brush, and we can turn our sketch back on. I'll hide the template, So I'm going to make the primary colour this mid blue and then the secondary colour this light blue. Just use that to fill in little dots in these spaces here. There we go, and we're now ready to start building out the pattern tile. So start by turning off your sketch layer, duplicate this pattern layer, tap on it and flatten. If you don't have enough spare layers to do that, you can turn off your textures, turn off the background, swipe down with 3 fingers and copy all. And you can turn the background and textures back on, come up to the top here and paste, and that will have the same effect. Then you can just turn the layers off because we are done with those now. And just with something you can see, put a mark going off each of the corners like that. Then we're going to duplicate this and snap it into each of the corners with snapping and magnetics on, like we did when we were building out the sketch, making really careful sure that you've got those orange lines there to show it snapping into place. When we come to test the pattern later, if you notice that some of your motifs are not quite lined up and it's just 1 or 2, it will be this stage where you've got wrong, so this would be where you'd need to come back to. Make sure you get everything really accurate in this stage. Then you can pinch those top 4 together and erase those marks in the middle, and then on this underneath layer erase the corner ones, and then you can pinch those 2 layers together, and that is your pattern tile. And we can see how it looks in repeat by swiping down with 3 fingers, doing copy all again, coming up to the top here, swipe down again and paste, and then drag this up to the middle until you see 1800 pixels there. Let's just add a layer underneath and fill it with this dark contrasting colour. Duplicate, tap transform and snap it over to the side. Then we zoom in and we check this seam. And like I said, if you found that this one here was slightly wonky and off, then you go back to that step where you put it into the corner. If you find you've got like a black line going down through it, that just means that you didn't resize this properly when you snapped it up to there or when you snapped it over to there. So just go back to pasting it in and snapping it up again. But that's looking okay, so we can do that down to the bottom. And again, just check that all of these ones are looking okay. Then you can pinch those together. And that is your finished pattern tile. And there's our cheerful tomato pattern. Remember, the full canvas and templates are in my Etsy store, and the brush set is free in the Pattern Maker's Toolkit. The Pattern Maker's Toolkit is a creative space for your pattern making journey, filled with brushes, palettes, and resources to follow along and stay inspired. It's free to join, and the monthly email is the only place to get your hands on the free stamp brush sets to follow along with the cozy colouring time lapses this year. You'll also get 10% off all the premium templates in my Etsy store, early access to some YouTube tutorials, plus all the free brushes, palettes, templates and mock-ups in the resource library. Think of it as your monthly dose of colour, fun and pattern making chaos. If you'd like to join, just follow the link in the description. Want to turn these patterns into print-on-demand ready tiles? Check out my Skillshare class where I guide you through moving your Procreate layers into Affinity Photo and using automations to prep your designs. You can try Skillshare free for 30 days with my special link. Have fun, stay creative, and I will see you soon.